I have been in the IT business for more than 30 years, and for the last 10 years, I've spent a lot of my time as a management consultant looking at how IT organizations are run, identifying issues, and then trying to figure out what to do with those issues. I've provided consulting in various places around the world, including Australia and the United States and the UK. It is remarkable about the similarity of the problems regardless of where I travel and regardless of the technical platform. So as part of my responsibility as a consultant, what I do is I look for solutions. What can we do about the issues? And the focus of this discussion is going to be about projects. Now, obviously, we all know that there's been various studies out there, and I'm going to cover them about the challenges associated with project management, and there's a whole variety of ideas out there. I first want to start out by saying there are no magic bullets here. A lot of what you're going to hear are common sense, and a lot of what you're going to hear are things that you have already observed yourselves. The challenge has been, the lean process has been accepted by manufacturing and found to be quite effective in terms of improving their process and quality by focusing on eliminating waste. It's a lot easier to do in the manufacturing industry because you can physically observe a production line and you can physically observe waste. It's much harder to do in our profession. Spotting waste, you're not looking at a production line. It's a lot harder to identify waste in process, and it's a lot harder to identify quality issues. So part of what I want to cover today is how can we apply those lean concepts to project management and help to improve our service delivery and our performance to our customers. If we, many of you have probably seen the Standish Chaos reports. They're published every few years. Originally, when they were published in 1994, it indicated that 16% of projects were considered to be successful, 31% were considered to have been outright failures or have been canceled, and 53% suffered some degree of challenges. If we fast forward to 2009, the latest numbers show a 32% success rate and a 24% failure rate. Now, this seems to indicate that we have made some progress in this area. Excuse me a second here. I'm sorry, a couple of those bullets seem to be all crammed together. What those bullets said was, is it really success, or do we have different types of projects today and different types of challenges? For example, back in 1994, it was common to have projects that were $10, $15, $20 million new development projects. Today, a lot of the projects tend to be much smaller than that. So are we actually getting better, or is the nature of the projects changing? And, you know, the focus on things like Agile allows us to implement functionality in smaller chunks and thereby helps to reduce some of the causes of failure. So those were what some of those bullet points were trying to show. The Chaos report itself identifies these top reasons for why projects fail. And you've probably seen most of them before: incomplete requirements, lack of user involvement, and lack of resources. I don't want to cover every one of them individually. I think they're fairly obvious, and most people have seen those or experienced them. But if you look at the highlighted ones in red, what you'll notice is that it's fairly common for IT to blame the business or the stakeholders or the sponsors for many of the challenges and the project failures. The incomplete requirements, well, I didn't get what the business should have given me. They weren't involved enough. They have unrealistic expectations. Well, that's fine, but the problem is that what are we as professionals going to do about these things? Ultimately, if the IT project manager and the IT organization owns the responsibility for successful delivery of projects, and these are the what we feel the problems are, then how do we fix them? And that's really the tone of the rest of this presentation. These are all known risks, and it's not acceptable for us to keep saying, well, I can't get requirements for the business. Okay, what should we do about it? Who is responsible for managing project risk? Who is responsible for project success? Who is to blame for project failure? Does the IT project team have unrealistic expectations Now let's talk a little bit about how do we apply the concepts of lean to these issues. First of all, what is lean? Lean is a process or an approach that dictates that if you focus on eliminating waste, where waste is work that adds no value to a product or service, the impact of focusing on the elimination of waste improves processes and improves quality and customer satisfaction and all of the things that come along with it. And I had mentioned earlier that it is, if you're in the manufacturing environment and you're looking at a production line, it is a lot easier to see waste. I can see the results of poor quality. I can see inefficiencies as people move through the production line and as goods and services move through the production line. It is much harder to do that when you're dealing with IT projects. What are some examples of waste in IT projects? Well, rework. If I have a requirement that was partially defined and I made my best guess and I did some work and then I got more details on the requirement and I had to throw away some of what I had done and recode it, that is waste. If I have to slow down and I have resource utilization that is not 100% because I'm waiting for requirements, that is waste. Anything having to do with defect correction. If I made a mistake that I need to fix later, obviously all of the effort that went into fixing that mistake is waste. If I have scheduling gaps and underutilized resources, and in many cases that's because I don't have the diversity of skills. So I have one person with one skill, a second person with another skill, and I wind up partially utilizing each of them. And what we do is we wind up relying on specialists. All of that costs extra money, and we don't get the best utilization of all of our resources. Another part of it is the excess effort. Do we have the right tools? Do we have models or templates? Do we have the right amount of knowledge? So if something should take 100 hours to build, is it taking 150 or 200 hours to build because of the lack of knowledge or templates or tools? And what can we do to make people more effective to be able to deliver that fixed amount of functionality in the least amount of time possible? Well, if those are examples of waste in IT, what can we do about it? I didn't mention, hopefully I didn't mention anything there that each of you hasn't experienced and you aren't well aware of many of those issues, and they're probably quite frustrating to all of us. Well, one thing that we can do is clearly define requirements which minimizes changes in rework. Now, managing requirements is one of the biggest challenges we have in project management, and there's a whole variety of different management solutions that are coming around. Agile is really all about recognizing the fact that we're not going to get all the requirements defined up front, and we're going to gradually evolve the functionality. Things like RUP are the same thing. But I was giving a requirements seminar to one of our customers last year, and they organized everybody involved in the requirements management process into the room. And they all introduced themselves to me, and I stood up in the front of the room, and I told them that my role in this entire exercise was to ask the stupid question. And after they got done chuckling, I said, well, the stupid question